Hi Leo, welcome to your October 2023 Astro-Tarot with me, Raphael from Reydiant Reality. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me. Quick note, these are for your sun, moon and ascendant sign, but I would advise if you're only going to watch one, make sure it's your ascendant sign. It's likely to be the most accurate because these readings are based on the astrology. With that said, remember they are general readings. Not everything's going to resonate with everybody. That is just fine. You should always use your own discernment. And before we get into that, if you want to book your personal reading with me, you can do so on the link in the description box below. Before we start, as always, I would like to bless my decks of cards with all forms of love, light, peace, prosperity and abundance. And I pray that the messages that come through are ultimately clear and concise. They help you on your path to your highest vibrational good. So the first transit that I want to look at for Leo, my dear ascendant brothers and sisters, is on the 3rd of October, Mars is going to conjunct the South Node in Libra. Now, a lot of people say probably not a massive deal. This happens once every one and so ever many years, just because of the orbit of Mars. But it is, for me, when I saw this, I was like, yeah, this is a grand release point, right? So we've got the energy of Mars, action, passion, energy, excitation, but Mars is also irritation. When I saw this connection, actually, the image that came to mind was a pair of scissors. And what happens with a pair of scissors is when you cut something, you separate, right? Something is removed or taken away for good. Like when you cut around a shape, what do you do with the bit that you don't need? You usually chuck it away. So there's something here that needs to be discarded. Now, for you, my dear Leos or Leo ascendant, Leo moon person, when anything happens in the third house for you, from the whole sign perspective, this is happening in your third house. Your third house is your day-to-day communications. It's your local environment. It's your siblings. It's kind of a bit of a packed house, the third house, because a lot happens there. It's education, it's skills, right? But let's take it to mean really communication in, as a broader. It's the websites that you use or visit every single day. It's the newspaper that you read or the information that you consume. It's how you communicate with people. And because this is in your communications house, through Libra, which is all about relating, connecting to people, fairness, balance, harmony, we see your experience of interaction on that daily level, right? And this is the space of, because it is the space of siblings, it's possible that Mars coming into the connection here with the South Node, there might be a relationship with a friend, a mate, a cousin, or a sibling, or even a neighbor that comes to an end. Now, this can be for any number of reasons. It doesn't have to be that you have a massive fallout. It could be that one of them moves away. Maybe a neighbor that you're really close to announces like, oh, actually we're selling our home and we're leaving. I also feel like this could be possibly the end to a situation that's been a problem or an issue with a sibling, a neighbor, a friend, or a cousin. Like, let's say you've had a problem and there's been like a little bit of animosity, challenges, etc. It's like this could come along and just you say, you know what, this really isn't, it's not worth falling out over, so we're going to squash it. We're just going to get rid of this, which I actually think could be great. What it also gives you is a push here to finally be able to break away from something or someone in your local area, or maybe even with projects. And remember, anything that happens with the nodal axis, or the nodal elements, should I say, is fated. It's karmic in some way, shape or form. So it is possible here that you have it is possible that whatever you're releasing here, it might even be that you're completing, maybe you're deciding for some of you to let go of a course of study of some sort or some kind of learning endeavor. Maybe you're finishing one at this time, maybe you start that process. There's a few ways it could show up, but there's definitely, like for me, this is a grand release point. Something is being cut away or removed, especially because it seems to be either superfluous or it's just not that important anymore. For this, you have the Lovers card, so there is a choice to be made here with the Hermit card. That's a lot of mercurial energy, and Mercury naturally rules, or at least resonates with the third house, because the third house is originally ruled by Gemini. So I find this really interesting. Look at that, right? And then you've got the Knight, you've got the Hermit card, and then you've got the Nine of Cups. The Hermit card is number 9. The Lovers card is the number 6. What's the number 6? It's basically just 9 upside down. I find this very, very interesting, right? So you've got two nines, two actual nines. Two nines represents receipt. And what this suggests to me is there is a satisfactory conclusion to some situation that had made you feel quite alone. So you could be voicing an opinion to a friend, a neighbor, a cousin, somebody that you are probably quite close to or have at least a decent relationship. You could be sort of having a talk with this person, opening up a dialogue to say, listen, I've actually felt quite alone because of your treatment, or you know what, although we're tight and we're close, I kind of feel like you haven't really been there to support me. And opening up that dialogue will bring you something that is a heart's desire. For a lot of you, this looks like some kind of new information that you have needed, or some kind of piece to the puzzle helps you really lay something to rest in a sense. It's almost like it gives you some kind of peace. You know, you get some kind of moment to say, okay, you know what, maybe this didn't go how I wanted it to do up until now, but actually now I've had this conversation, I feel a free sort of, like a freedom around this. On the 9th of October, Venus is finally, oh my gosh, going to leave the sign of Leo. Usually Venus transiting our sign is lovely. But when it goes retrograde, and this one in particular seemed to be quite nasty. Like this Venus was a nasty bitch. Excuse my language, but you know, if you've been with me long enough, you know how I am, right? So this Venus is now moving out of the sign of Leo, and it's moving into the sign of Virgo. What I love most about this is it's because it's stepping into your second house, and Venus rules values, money, worth, appreciation, all of those kinds of things, talents, the things that make us shine from within, all of that stuff is Venus stuff. Because she's gone retrograde in the sign of Leo, and this is, especially if you're an ascendant Leo to a lesser degree, but still relevant the sun, and even still the moon as well. Because Venus rules worth, value, appreciation, talents, etc. Going retrograde in your sign, or specifically in your first house, this has really got you to rediscover the value and the worth that you actually do place on yourself, your talents, your skills, your innate beauty, etc. And ask yourself, actually, do I value myself enough? And if you haven't, she's really helped you reframe that and rewrite it in some way to say, actually, you know what, let me put this and myself in its proper sort of place. Now, because it's also helped, like it's in the space of and that stuff that we talk about with Venus is also stuff that you find in the second house. If you've been with me long enough, you will have heard me say how much money you can make, how much wealth and resources you can generate is in large proportion to how you genuinely value and feel about yourself and your personal self-esteem. It's the space of values, and those have been shifting in relation to yourself all this time because Venus has been in your sign. Like now it's like to take those inner shifts and those value sort of changes or paradigm shifts, if you like, and that different understanding of yourself and take it to the bank. Now you actually get to do something with it. Now you actually get to say, right, okay, now that I've really shifted this self-worth stuff, this self-esteem, this self-value, it's time to turn that into actions that actually make me money. All right. Venus is a sweetener. So wherever she goes, she brings ease. She cleans up that area. She's coming into the sign of Virgo, which is meticulous, precise. It loves to clean things up, to make them better, shiny and new in some way, shape or form. Ain't nobody better than a Virgo, right? And this is one thing that I love about the sign of Virgo. They can take, like, you could give them something that was battered, bruised and beat up, and they will take it and love it back into its best version of what it can be. Like if you give them a beat down car, they'll present you with something that looks brand new. You give them time, space and the resources they need to do it, and it will just come up trumps. Venus is moving into that sign for you, which is in your second house. Now, it does immediately come into an opposition with Saturn. So there's a reality check around the finances right out of the gate from sort of like the 9th, 10th and 11th around your finances and your personal resources. But after that, it starts to get really good. Money is going to flow nicely in a way from that point onwards. It's a short transit, but it's a welcome one, especially after everything that we've had to deal with as Leo risings, etc. But what I love about this, or what I should say about this, is lean into it, all right? For this, you've got the Knight of Wands. You got to get passionate about this now, all right? With the Six of Cups, oh yes, and the High Priestess. This is finances, money, and resources that potentially come to you from behind the scenes, maybe from an older family member, maybe from potentially even actually for some of you from a sibling, but it could also be a fund or a pocket of cash or some kind of gift that is given to you in a discretionary manner. And I say that because the High Priestess has a way of, it tends to be hidden things, secrets, etc. But with that Knight of Wands, this is you bringing something back to life. There's something that you're bringing back from the past that you're working on in secret, you're not telling anybody about. There might be a few things in the pipeline. Right, but yeah, I love it. This is great. On the 12th of October, Mars, the planet of action, passion, energy, excitation, is coming into the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio in your chart, Leo, as a Leo ascendant at least, to a lesser degree the sun and the moon, occupies Scorpio, right? So you have Scorpio in the home and family sector. Now, Mars comes into a strong place here because Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. It's the ancient ruler of Scorpio, but it still rules Scorpio. There is a sting with Mars in the fourth, right? Because the fourth house is a very emotional space. It's a very powerful place in the chart because it represents your roots, your foundations, the deepest part of you. The deepest parts, should I say, of you are found in your 4th, 8th and 12th houses. This 4th house, having Mars come into it, and I can tell you from the very end of 2020 right through until sort of now, I've observed that Mars coming into the 4th, it can bring some shit, right? I'm just going to call a spade a spade. It does, however, it has you feel in some kind of way, but it does, however, build resilience. There's something about Mars, every time Mars passes through my 4th, and I've done this in terms of retroactively as well. I've looked back at all the years that Mars has gone through my 4th house, and I've asked myself what was happening at that time, etc. There's something about it that gives you that, like, it builds a resilience emotionally, it builds power, and if you can channel the emotionally fraught or charged energy that it's providing at the moment, you can find a strength and a passion that is quite possibly unsurpassed. So it has the chance to really make you, but it has to kind of cut away some stuff first. What else comes to mind here is that it might be potentially a loss in terms of a familial tie. It could also be that family situations could get irritating and challenging, just a bit more so. It's also possible that you start to let go of, or at least get proactive about how to untangle familial stuff. It could also be that you start going on a rampage and fixing things and, doing DIY and really getting active around the home. For this, you've got the Queen of Swords, so it's very likely that you will be settling some kind of challenge or issue, because the Queen of Swords is about what we go to war for. The Nine of Wands, okay, and the Three of Pentacles. So this is you addressing a wound, a hurt, or a challenge in some way. And you're doing this in a way where you are educating people about the experience, and it's quite possibly that this could be a family member. The Queen of Swords is usually an air sign woman, Aquarius, Gemini, Libra, but she does also show up for older women. So this could be older aunts, older, sisters, grandparents, parents, just women that are older than us in general. This could be that you are educating somebody on the challenges and the hardships that you've had to go through to be a part of your family. And now you're being sort of really brutal about outlining, hey, listen, here's what you don't know. Here's what you haven't seen, right? On the 24th of October, the moon is going to conjunct Saturn at 0 degrees, and those two are going to trine the sun at 0 degrees of Scorpio. So this is happening. So the Pisces stuff for you occupies the 8th house. The Scorpio stuff, as I mentioned earlier, occupies the 4th house. And on top of that, Mercury is at like 3 degrees of Scorpio at this time. So this is a very deep aspect because it's happening. Remember what I said to you earlier about the 4th, 8th and 12th houses in your chart? They're the deepest spaces of self. And this is a deep connection, right? It's a very deep aspect, actually. It's a trine, so it's got the chance to be harmonious and beautiful, and it can really highlight something wonderful. But when this comes together, it's deep or intense or both. In the 8th house, you've got the moon and Saturn at 0 of Pisces. This is potentially a really deep, introspective look at your fears, understanding how you feel about death, about taxes, about inheritance, about other people's money, possibly. It could also be that you have, again, a financial reality check, because Saturn is the reality check, and coming into connection with the moon, this could be around a woman or, an important sort of feminine figure in your life. And that's coming from the 8th house, right? That's coming from and it could also be like fears that you have around losing a mum or an aunt or whatever the case might be. There could be a lot of talk around wills, estates, inheritance, etc. at this time, because it's 4th house, which is home, family, property, real estate. The 8th house, other people's money. So when you start to mix these, there could be a lot of fears. There could also be a lot of intense emotion at this time. And there could also be you being charged with responsibility for something that you kind of didn't expect to be. It's also potentially smooths things over with family situations, and it gives the ability to move on or to move forward better than before. So although it can be challenging and intense, I actually think this could still be quite good. So for this, you've got the 3 of Wands. So there is a way forward, but you do have to find it yourself. The way that you find this is through your emotions, the Page of Cups, and then you've got the King of Swords. So there is likely to be some kind of emotion, if it's not an actual sort of paperwork, legal matter, etc. sort of responsibility, you might be charged with or left with an emotional responsibility of some sort that you don't expect. The way to improve familial ties and situations and to release some of the fear, I actually think starts here, where you're educating somebody on just what it's been or what it's cost you to be yourself within the scope of your actual family. That may really come up for you at this time. And, quite frankly, this could be very, very vulnerable. This could be you really talking about things or divulging things that have been quite, prevalent in your life, but never really noticed. And now you're speaking about them. People are kind of like, whoa, wow, we didn't know that was your experience, or at least the way that you felt you had experienced all of what's happened, throughout our familial ties and history. All right, so that's your transits. Let's look at your moons. So we've got a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Libra on the 14th of October. I won't go into super detail here because I'll do that in other videos. So you've got the gate 12 and caution. This is actually, right, so 1 and 2 gives you 3. This is happening in your 3rd house of communications, of day-to-day, environment. It could also be, because a solar eclipse is a grand beginning, it could also be that you start some course of study right now or head into some sort of study, and that really, you're being urged to kind of throw caution to the wind and put more into it than you have been up until this point. So it's almost like I think that Mars connecting with the South Node in Libra is probably going to see you releasing what you need to in order to focus on something that is going to give you something a lot more long term. And then, possibly as well, for some of you, maybe you start writing or creating content, in some way, shape or form. And then on the 28th of October, we've got the full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus, the final one of this axis. I'm so fucking ready for this to be done. we have the gate 27 and caring. And although this is a 10th house full moon lunar eclipse, which is bringing a culmination, ending or completion to light, it has a lot to do with your family. The gate 27 and caring card is a familial energy. So there's something about your family ties, how you show up in your family. And, you know, we saw this in the transits that I picked out for you guys. So it'll be interesting to see how this shows up and how it plays out for you. All in all, I don't think it's a bad month at all. I actually think there's a lot of advancement here, but it's so bitty that you might not necessarily see it. And, you know, the road to success is not a straight line by any stretch. It's the most bloody jagged thing that you've ever seen, with very high highs and very low sort of valleys, and the peaks and troughs are intense sometimes. But, you know, I actually think this could be a really good month. I think it's just going to be, you know, an interestingly, curiously intense month. With that said, I wish you an abundance of all of that good stuff. Let me know in the comments how it shapes up. If you want to get your own one-to-one Astro Tarot scope, where we get together on Zoom and we do all of this, but for you and your chart, hit the link in the description box below and book yourself in. All right, with that said, take care and I'll see you soon.